Hey everyone, Blake Lovell, Southeastern 14 here, and it is Championship Sunday in the SEC tournament. We are down to two, and that is, of course, the top two teams in the regular season will meet for the conference tournament title. Alabama taking on Texas A&M, and sort of anticlimactic, I guess, if you're a non-Alabama or Texas A&M fan, because we talked about all the scenarios that could play out in the semifinals on yesterday's video. We're like, okay, what if you get Missouri, Vanderbilt, teams that were picked 11th and 12th, or maybe get Alabama, Vanderbilt after that 57-point game, a month and a half ago? Great storylines. Missouri and A&M, the former Big 12 members, finally playing it off for a championship in the SEC, and there was a lot of fun stuff like that. I was like, well, of course, you could also just get the two best teams, and that's what we're getting. So I don't think anyone should be too upset about that, unless, of course, your team lost to get to this point. But it is the two best teams in the SEC that will square off for the tournament title. And yeah, I mean, looking back just quickly at yesterday's games, I thought Alabama, Missouri, gives Missouri some credit. I thought they came out, and it was one of those where, you just Alabama is always going to make a run. And it's just a matter of, can you sort of slow them down when they do? And I thought Missouri, for the most part, didn't get off to a great start, weren't making kind of, a lot of shots early on, started to make some shots. Obviously, the Demoy Hodge shot. What was that going into halftime? Just a ridiculous shot once again. But I thought, hey, they've got a little momentum here. But this is usually that point, on Saturday in a semifinal setting where teams can just run out of gas. And I know, it's Missouri's second game, but playing a team like Tennessee, very physical. Again, sort of the type of style you have to play to beat Tennessee. And I just thought Missouri ran out of gas. They stopped hitting shots, and you could just tell they made that run to make it interesting. Like I said, sort of. I mean, what they took the lead early in the second half. I want to say they were up 4, something like that. But once Alabama started to swing that momentum, you could just tell it almost was like Missouri just did not have that extra something to be able to slow them down. And again, missed some shots and had to take some tough shots too. And that's why we always talk about Alabama defensively not getting enough credit. They forced a lot of tough shots, and Missouri also just missed some shots that, who knows, maybe they make if it's game one of the tournament versus game two of the tournament. So a lot of things like that came into play. But of course, you also had just the ability for Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, those guys just to make big shots, and they did. I mean, they stepped up and hit some big buckets at the right time. And I just thought that was a difference too. And really some of the things we talked about going into it, offensive rebounding for Missouri, that could have been an issue in terms of allowing Bama a lot of second chance opportunities. That didn't really come into play all that much. So I think you give Missouri some credit. Now, of course, it's not like Alabama missed a lot of shots inside the paint. They went 20 of 30 from two. Only hit 8 threes, but they found a way to win, and that's what good teams do. And yeah, I mean, again, it doesn't hurt having a couple players like Miller and Clowney and their ability to step up and make shots, and that's what happened. But again, I thought just for Missouri, when you look at games and you're trying to win a game like that, Kobe Brown had 6 points, and that's just going to be a tough thing to do, no matter what Demoy Hodge and DeAndre Golston and those guys do as well. Nick Honor only had 3, hit 1 3 in the game. So yeah, it's just Alabama will force you to make some tough baskets, and Missouri cannot make those baskets. On a game two in back to back days, like it was just a hard thing to do, and you're just not going to beat Bama shooting whatever Missouri did. What was it, like 34%, something like that? I put the number out there, but yeah, it was just not meant to be for the Tigers in that one. And now it is Alabama moving on to play Texas A&M. And speaking of, you're going to talk about getting off to a good start. A&M did just that against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt pretty much put itself in a hole early on and could not afford to do that against this A&M team. A&M up 24 at halftime, 49 points at the half. They could not miss. I mean, they were shooting unbelievable percentage. And I know I'm like, well, I'm trying to remember what it was. And it was like, that game wasn't that long ago, but what, they had to be shooting close to 70% or something, I think, at halftime. Something like that. For the game, they shot 60%, hit 10 threes. I thought Wade Taylor, once again, you guys know we've talked about Wade Taylor a lot this season, just underrated completely. I know he made first team All SEC, but we're like, he's still underrated. Still does not get enough love for what he brings to that A&M team. Had 25 points, hit 4 threes. Only had 2 turnovers in 31 minutes. So he was terrific. I thought, Tyrese Radford once again stepped up, made some shots. Julius Marble had a good game. I thought 13 points in 18 minutes, grabbed some boards. And so, yeah, he was able to kind of take advantage of some of that in terms of just, the size inside. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it really was like, I mean, A&M just could not miss. Like they just were making shots. And again, that makes the game so much easier. Got to the free throw line. It's like, who knew, right? Like it's like A&M getting to the free throw line, 15, or yeah, they went 15 and 25 from the line. And I mean, it was just, I think there were some similarities for Vanderbilt, as there were Missouri, in that you just felt like it was a team that did all it could to kind of, try to make that run. But of course, it was tougher for Vanderbilt because this was game 3 in 3 days, after playing LSU. What was that, Thursday, played Kentucky Friday, and now playing a Texas A&M team that we've talked about their style that will just sort of grind you into submission. But it wasn't just that for A&M in this game. They just made shots, and, they capitalized on Vanderbilt, struggling a little bit defensively. But I also think you just have to look at it and chalk it up as A&M just making shots. And, that makes the game so much easier. So I I mean, A&M was just fantastic in this one, and I thought that there was a lot certainly that they can use now moving into this championship game. And it is quite a setup, right? Because these two teams, we were like, okay, in some of the matchups in this tournament, like, well, these two teams played a long time ago. Who knows, right? Like, you don't know what to expect. That game was forever ago. Not these two. These two played 8 days ago in College Station. Of course, Texas A&M won that game 67-61. It didn't matter in terms of the championship and the regular season. Alabama had already locked that up. But A&M won a hard-fought game. Taylor, yet again, 28 points in that one in 31 minutes. He was the catalyst for A&M. Radford, 21 points. Dexter Dennis had 11. So I think you just look at that, and that's where, like, A&M's bigs did not do a whole lot. Henry Coleman had 4 points, only had 2 rebounds. Julius Marble had 2 points, didn't have a rebound. So I think that's kind of one of those things too. When you look at how they won that game, and Solomon Washington was actually someone who stepped up and really helped on the boards, but the guards also rebounded. Dennis had 7, Radford had 7, and of course on the other side you've got Charles Bediako, Brandon Miller in rebounding, Noah Clowney, of course. So, like, I think that's going to be a very fascinating aspect of this game, is just the battle of these, these guys with length, and what are they going to be able to do in terms of, extra opportunities. Alabama got 15 offensive rebounds against A&M in that first game, and I think that's going to be important because I keep saying this. It's like we keep talking about A&M being a team you just do not want to see in your bracket in the NCAA tournament. The reason why is like just game planning. You do not want to play that style. Like there is no one who goes into playing A&M and is just thrilled about the idea of playing the type of style they want you to play. And, especially I said on the defensive side of the floor. And so I think for Alabama, getting those extra looks is going to be important because there will be some tough shots that have to be made for Alabama to win this game. And we saw that the first time around. They're going to force you into taking tough shots, but Alabama can do the same with Texas A&M based on how good they are on defense. And we saw that, some against Missouri, just forcing tough contested looks inside the arc. That was something that happened a lot in terms of just looking at kind of the matchups there and how that game played out. So I'm very curious to see, how this thing plays out because, in terms of, I mean, A&M seeding wise, you look at some of the projections right now. I think there are people that sort of think A&M's moving into that 5 range. And Chris, I know, had talked about that. There's certainly a possibility they win this tournament. And, what does it matter, right? Like, how much the committee going to value this? Because we know A&M was in the spot last year and maybe it's a little bit different now. But, what happens if A&M wins this thing? I think they could be a lock as a 5 seed. So I think you just kind of see how far this team has come. And when you just, again, look at this matchup on paper, A&M absolutely can beat Alabama because they already have. But they did this not long ago. And you just, again, I think Buzz Williams, just from a game planning standpoint, you just see what he puts into it, from a game plan, perspective. And that's not to say no other coaches do that, but you can just tell, like, you see a Buzz Williams game plan, you just know it. Like, they just come out and they have an approach that works for them. And I said this too yesterday to someone. I think what makes A&M so good and why they are where they are is because they know what their identity is. They know exactly what they have to do to beat teams. And, like, you could say, well, that's maybe a little cliche. No, like, A&M is one of those teams that, some teams you see go outside kind of the box a little bit and try to do things that they're not good at. A&M just does everything it's good at. And like I said, if they're making shots, that makes it even tougher because a lot of people, I think, could look at them and say, well, they need to get to the free throw line to be able to score. As we saw yesterday, that's not true. They don't have to necessarily get there to be able to put up points. They have guys who can make shots, and so does Alabama, right? And so that's going to be important for A&M. And it's really just a matter of how this game plays out stylistically because the last time around, a 67-61 type game feels like that's in A&M's favor, just based on, again, how that plays out from a scoring perspective and all that. And remember, too, Alabama had 18 turnovers in that game. We've talked about, just sort of the tendency to turn the ball over a little bit at times, especially against a defense like this. So I think that's something else you have to look at in this one, just for the numbers standpoint, because I know Chris is always the one that does this, but Ken Palm's got this as a 6-point game in Alabama's favor. I will look up kind of what the spread is at the moment. But I mean, to me, this is one that I just find very fascinating. Looks like it opened at 3.5 in Alabama's favor. It looks like it's up to 4.5. Alabama's the favorite here. So that is worth noting there. We are not professional bettors, we always say, but if you want to do that, there are the numbers at your disposal. All right, for the pick, right? You guys know where I'm going here because I always do this when I pick my bracket before the tournament starts. Like I try not to change it all that much in terms of who I pick to win it and all that. I initially picked Alabama to win this tournament. That's, I know, kind of a boring pick, but I picked Alabama. I'm going to stay with them here, but clearly A&M is certainly capable of winning this thing, and I just think it's going to come down to, can they force the turnovers? Can they force Alabama to make a lot of mistakes here? And also, can A&M continue against this Alabama defense? Can they get those looks they've gotten, the past couple games? Because I think that's going to be important too. But Alabama just so good on the defensive end of the floor. And I think that's just, they are. We talked about it yesterday in terms of just their percentage defense numbers. Third in the country in 3-point percentage defense, first overall in 2-point defense, first in effective field goal percentage defense. And so you look at all those things into the mix. Can Alabama, play straight up defense, not allow A&M just to get to the free throw line nonstop? And if they can, I think Alabama can certainly have a really good chance to win this game. But I'm excited for this one. I think, as we always say, it's fun to look at the storylines in tournament time, and you like upsets and all that. And of course, we'll talk more about that into the NCAA tournament stuff. But I mean, this is what you want in a conference tournament type scenario. You want hey, if you want to see the best game, perhaps it's going to come from the two best teams, and these two were the two best teams. And so I will again pick Alabama just based on the fact that I picked them to win the tournament. I don't guess I should change my mind just yet, but certainly you can make a strong argument that A&M can win this thing. And man, that would be something, wouldn't it, for this A&M team? If you think about where they came from, sitting at 6-5 on December the 20th after a 5-point home loss to Wofford, and wondering, what's going to happen next. Like I remember too, there were even people like back at that point saying, "Boy, I mean, is A&M going to make a change at some point, like coaching wise?" Look where they are now, right? Like they have been one of the best teams in the country since December the 20th, and that's not an exaggeration. They really have been. And so now you look at this, squaring off with Alabama, perhaps the best team in the country for the SEC tournament title. Very fun setup here for this one. So should be a fun game, and we will see how it plays out. But of course, guys, it is Selection Sunday, and we will have you covered here at Southeastern 14. We are currently planning on doing kind of what we did last year, doing a live show, a live stream that is here at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So the selection show 5 p.m. Central. We are planning to start our sort of live stream at around 4:30. That way you can get in, ask any bracketology questions you have, anything else you want to discuss leading up to the actual show, and then you will get our reaction live to the brackets being revealed. And we will certainly go into all the different matchups for SEC teams, give you our thoughts on the draw, all of that. And of course, we'll continue to do that throughout the week leading into the actual games themselves. But so be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on notifications. That's very important, especially if you want to make sure you jump in for the live stream. So turn on the notifications, do that. And yeah, should be a lot of fun. And hey, it's Selection Sunday. Like I said, it's a very fun time. I know also for some of you guys with certain teams, it can also be a very nervous time. But we will see how many SEC teams make it into the field. And again, hit that subscribe button to catch all our coverage here on Selection Sunday. So appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for your support of the channel, and we'll talk to you again soon here on Southeastern 14.